Tonight, the president denounces racism, but will anything change?
Our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy.
No promises for new gun control as 2 cities mourn and the death toll rises. What can be done to stop these shooters before they turn violent?
This is not a normal weekend in the city of Toronto.
A dozen shootings in just 3 days. But what's behind the spike in violence in Canada's biggest city?
We're concerned for the future.
The essential cancer drugs running dangerously low in Canada. Can patients afford to wait? This is The National. More grief today, heaped on where there was so much already. The number of people killed in this weekend's mass shootings in the U.S. has climbed. The total lives lost, now 31. El Paso, Texas, Dayton, Ohio, both just the latest American cities to suffer the aftermath of a mass shooting. In them now and beyond them, the push for change to find some way to prevent the next mass murder from happening, and it's heating up. Donald Trump is right in the middle of it.
We are outraged and sickened by this monstrous evil, the cruelty, the hatred, the malice, the bloodshed, and the terror.
Trying to quiet his critics, he condemned hate and white supremacy today, both apparent motivations for the man who opened fire in an El Paso Walmart on Saturday. The number of dead in that attack rose today to 22. They include several Mexicans and 1 German. The crime scene is still being combed through, the shooter still cooperating with police, and Trump is now planning to visit there on Wednesday. Kim Brunherber shows us he'll find a city that is steeped in grief and fear.
Hey. Yes.
Letter by letter, Tony Basco spells out the name of his beloved Margie. She went shopping and never came home. Now her name goes up on a cross.
I'm sorry for your loss.
I never, ever expected. We got over 22 years together. It was a shock. And I knew something was wrong. But she's in a good place now.
The grim procession begins. Basco carries the cross to the memorial just across from the Walmart in which Margie was killed. What's striking is how long the procession of crosses takes. There are just that many. El Paso is a big city, but to the Chucos, as the Hispanic residents that make up 80% of this city call themselves, it feels like a small community. Annabelle Reyes' friend from cheerleading camp just lost her mom in the shooting. Her brother Ibrahim lays the wreath. Their mom has no answers.
We see this happen in other places and we pray for those other places, but just when it hit home, it really, really hurt. It's a lot of hate that happened in a crime, you know, so it's unreal.
So they come here with their loved ones to lay flowers and light candles and hope they won't be the next targets of hate. Gun control, white supremacy, Donald Trump, most here don't want to be drawn into a political discussion, but the fear is there. It's real.
I'm not gonna lie, I was fearful for coming out here, but we have to move on. We have to keep on going and not let this incident define us.
Spell out his name for me.
Another victim becomes known. A friend reads the name to Greg Zanias. He's traveled the country since 1997 building crosses for victims of violence, 200 and counting. Soon, this one will join the others. Then Zanias says he's off to Dayton, Ohio. More names, more crosses. Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, El Paso, Texas.
In Dayton, mixed in with the grief, so many questions. The big one, what drove the shooter there to pull the trigger at all? 9 people were killed when the gunman attacked an entertainment district overnight on Sunday. Today, police released chilling new details about what happened in the chaos and how much worse it could have been.
If all the magazines that were recovered from the suspect were completely full, he would have had a maximum of 250 rounds in his possession at the time.
250 bullets in the hands of the man who showed up on that Dayton street with body armor, a mask, and clearly a will to kill. A sign of how bad things could have been. Other numbers prove how bad it was. Police said today Connor Betts fired at least 41 shots into the crowd. Officers fired at least 65 back. It took 30 seconds to bring him down. In that time, 9 dead, 14 others hit, more injured in the chaos.
I just remember seeing bodies and sheets, just riddled all over the sidewalk.
It is fundamentally problematic. They have that level of weaponry in a civilian environment.
As to the question of what motivated the shooter, still no answers today, nor to whether he intended to kill his sister, one of the victims.
It seems to just defy believability he would shoot his own sister. But it's also hard to believe that he didn't recognize that was his sister.
Former classmates say he once created a hit list in school. Today, police cautioned against trying to infer too much from something that happened 10 years ago. Meanwhile, at the site of the shooting today, anguish on display as people try to make sense of what seems so senseless. So much grief and anger has again ignited calls for stricter gun controls in the U.S. And given the apparent racist motive of the El Paso shooter, it also has politicians condemning white supremacy and hate, including President Donald Trump. Here's Peter Armstrong.
In a lot of ways, there are two Donald Trumps. There's the one that gets fired up and speaks off the cuff at rallies, and the more rare scripted Trump,
morning.
the one we saw today.
In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. These sinister ideologies must be defeated. Hate has no place in America. Hatred warps the mind, ravages the heart, and devours the soul.
The language stands out because it stands in such contrast to the language we've come to expect from the president.
This is an invasion.
They're rapists.
But how do you stop these people? You can't. There's no... That's only in the panhandle you can get away with that statement.
This afternoon, former President Barack Obama released a statement comparing the attacker in El Paso to members of ISIS and other foreign terrorist organizations. Obama went on to say, we should soundly reject leaders who demonize those who don't look like us or suggest that other people, including immigrants, threaten our way of life. He never mentioned Trump's name, but the implication was clear. Some aren't quite as diplomatic.
Well, Jesus Christ, of course he's racist. He's been racist from day one.
One more thing that's fodder for his critics.
May God bless the memory of those who perished in Toledo.
Dayton's mayor, which sits a full 200 kilometers south of Toledo, was asked about a report that Trump will visit this week.
I've heard that he's coming Wednesday, but I've not gotten a call. And he might be going to Toledo. I don't know.
When he does go to Dayton, people will want to know what he'll actually do to stop mass shootings. Anyone hoping for new gun control laws got no such promise today.
Mental illness and hatred pulls the trigger, not the gun.
So given Trump's history of saying one thing when reading off a teleprompter and doing something else entirely when speaking at a rally or ranting on Twitter, the real test for the president's call for unity isn't some scripted moment at the White House, but rather what he'll say and do in the days and weeks to come. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Washington.
So what drives someone to pick up a gun and attack? We will hear from two people who almost went down that path about how to stop mass shooters before they turn violent. That's coming up a bit later.
It was also a violent long weekend in Canada's largest city. Toronto police are asking the public for help after 12 separate shootings, including one just this afternoon. Jacqueline Hansen looks at how the city is dealing with this spike in violence.
I will say that this is not a normal weekend in the city of Toronto.
Shell casings litter the ground at a dozen different crime scenes. The worst one early this morning at a packed nightclub in North Toronto where 7 people were injured.
I find it disturbing when you've got over 100 people and someone would be brazen enough to pull out a gun and start shooting.
At this point, police don't see a connection between the different shootings, but investigations are ongoing. Each scene, witness, and victim part of a growing puzzle of gun violence in the city.
The things that we would rehearse for, hoping that they would never happen, are unfortunately becoming an everyday occurrence in our city.
Toronto trauma surgeon Dr. Najma Ahmed is one of many healthcare professionals who want stricter gun laws.
We ask our public officials to take this matter seriously before it gets out of hand, because we know what happens when things get out of hand, as witnessed by the weekend in the United States.
Last year in Toronto, a string of shootings led Mayor John Tory to call for a federal ban on handguns, a call he repeated today. The province and Ottawa have kicked in millions of dollars to fight guns and gangs, and the city has even paid residents to turn in unwanted or illegal guns. But big changes take time.
Things like concentrated poverty, racial segregation in terms of access to public education, to good housing, to resources that we know help people get ahead in the world. These are sort of the core root causes of gun violence.
Yet Chief Mark Saunders remains optimistic that with the public's help, they'll find the people responsible. But just hours after his press conference, another shooting and another victim. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, before all of this, Toronto had seen a slight decline in shootings compared to last year, but no more. According to the most recent online figures posted by Toronto Police, there were 234 shootings by July 28, 2018, compared to just 230 for the same period this year. But this long weekend, along with a separate shooting in North Toronto last Thursday, drives the number up to at least 243.
Doctors across Canada are concerned about a chronic shortage of 3 injectable cancer drugs. Oncologists say no patient has suffered yet, but they do fear that day is coming. As Christine Burack reports, drug companies give various reasons why essential medications are in short supply, but a major factor is likely profits.
Dr. Gerald Batiste doesn't want to alarm cancer patients, but says shortages of vital cancer drugs are growing.
It's not really clear that any efforts are being made to solve this problem in a more permanent way.
Across Canada, 3 essential medications are now in short supply. Vinorelbine treats certain types of lung and breast cancer. Etoposide is used for malignant lymphomas, lung and testicular cancer. And leucovorin is routinely given to patients to reduce the toxic side effects of chemotherapy drugs.
Drug makers have given various reasons for the shortages, including disruptions in manufacturing, trouble securing raw materials, even delivery issues. But all 3 of those drugs have one thing in common. They've all gone off patent, which means they're no longer as profitable to produce.
We're concerned for the future.
In Nova Scotia, the situation is even worse. Hospitals are running low on 8 cancer drugs.
That's the most I've seen in 25 years. I've dealt with sometimes 2, 3, but 8 is for me a record.
The shortages have left doctors, nurses, and pharmacists across the country struggling to seek out, substitute, and share the drug supply they have.
Right now, we haven't had anything that's actually led to different outcomes for the patients, but we're worried and we're concerned that this is happening, and will there come a time where we don't have anything?
In a statement, Health Canada says it recognizes the impact these shortages have on patients and is taking immediate action to address them. It's anticipating the shortage of etoposide to end in September, vinorelbine by October, but the supply of leucovorin remains unclear.
With acute leukemia, I didn't have months or years to wait. I had a very small window that I had to access this treatment.
At 22, Jeff Eaton was told there would be challenges to getting the best treatment for his condition. He did get it, but it wasn't easy.
It's a place where I know nobody wants to be in.
And yet, it's a reality other cancer patients may soon be facing. Christine Burack, CBC News, Toronto.
Here's some of the other stories we're following tonight on The National. Concerns in the financial world after the trade war between the United States and China triggered a huge drop on North American markets. The Dow Jones Industrial Average falling nearly 3%, the worst day of this year. And it comes after China's central bank devalued its currency to its lowest level in more than a decade. Investors are worried that the deepening trade war between the two countries will slow global growth. Last week, Trump imposed new tariffs on Chinese goods. An extensive river search has come up empty in the hunt for those 2 BC fugitives. Mounties say they've completed their work in the Nelson River in northern Manitoba, and they won't be doing any additional dives. Officers started the underwater search after a damaged aluminum boat was found on Friday. Still no trace of Cam McLeod and Briar Schmigelski. This fiery crash in Quebec has killed 4 people. A small car got stuck underneath a semi-trailer on the 440 this afternoon. It then hit another truck and then 3 more vehicles. One of the trucks was carrying propane canisters, and that may have triggered the small explosion. It took over an hour for firefighters to get the blaze under control. And here's the scene of the crash just a few minutes ago. You could see the scorched vehicles and emergency services still there. At this stage, the 440 is closed to traffic westbound. The complex cleanup and restoration of Notre Dame has hit a big snag. Fire gutted the Parisian landmark in April, sending toxic particles billowing skyward. Now Parisians are worried about lead levels and whether workers and residents are at risk. As Susan Ormiston tells us, work has stopped until it's all sorted out.
Paris isn't Paris without Notre Dame, but the cathedral is closed this summer. Its graceful contours shrouded in scaffolding. An epic cleanup inside has been halted for now, as concerns mount over lead contamination. With the fire, 450 tons of lead, mainly in the roof, melted, dispersing lead particles, and as the spire, clad in lead, collapsed, a thick yellow cloud wafted over the city.
And the view of Notre Dame is on the...
Odile Brison lives in an apartment building right across the Seine. She's waiting for her test results for lead levels after feeling ill recently.
I started to have tummy pains, feeling very tired, and then these pains have been increasing.
Il faut tout nettoyer. A group of Paris unions and environmentalists today raised the alarm. Protections for workers and the public have been too late, they say, and not enough. And as they spoke, it appeared a man was swiping samples from just in front of the cathedral.
There were a lot of workers working without any kind of protection against lead.
Researcher Annie Thébault-Moni says the city has underplayed the lead problem.
The first reaction of the health authorities is to say there is no problem.
Under pressure, that's changing.
Normally, this area is full of people, but it's completely shut down. And today, the city of Paris announced it's going to try to decontaminate this area. They'll start in a couple of days by applying a thin layer of gel all over this square and in adjacent streets. It's meant to pull up any lead particles that have settled into the ground here. The whole process could take till September.
Notre Dame is still a draw, families flocking to see what they can still. The city says a new round of sampling should give a clearer picture, but a deputy mayor is urging caution. Tourists must not sit on the streets nearby with their kids and have picnics for now, says Anne Souris. A sobering reminder that too little is known about what Notre Dame's fire left behind. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Paris.
Still ahead, adapting to climate change, from flood control to growing crops. The national series In Our Backyard finds the innovative approach.
And later, the racers who come to the Canadian Rockies to cheat death. It's definitely no walk in the park. This is one of the world's toughest ultra marathons. The United Nations is calling for calm after a controversial move by India today. It revoked special status for its portion of the disputed Kashmir region. India and Pakistan each consider the territory their own, and each administers roughly half. But it's been a frequent source of wars and skirmishes between the two nuclear powers. Up until now, Indian-administered Kashmir had enjoyed limited powers. Cameron McIntosh has more on the concerns today's development is generating.
In Srinagar, the capital of Kashmir, Indian military and police man roadblocks and checkpoints, set up on the pretense of an imminent terror attack. It now appears they went to prevent an uprising and impose a curfew, as cellular and internet communications were cut off. Then came this. The Indian Interior Minister announcing to Parliament Kashmir's semi-autonomous status will be revoked, as opposition parties shouted him down. For India, this will end a 7-decade-old constitutional provision that granted parts of Kashmir semi-autonomous powers, in exchange for India taking control of military and foreign affairs. The Indian government says this move will better integrate Kashmir. Some Hindus were celebrating today. This will likely overturn a Kashmiri law that prevented non-state residents from buying property. Our 30 years of banishment has ended, said this man. But Kashmiris, most of them Muslim, like Zan Mohammed, fear they will soon be a minority in their own land. It was our identity, the identity of Kashmir, he said. This is injustice. Indeed, there's a debate whether this is actually legal under India's constitution.
Their main objective is to convert India into a Hindu state.
This Kashmiri Hindu scholar sees it as part of a bigger trend for India's ruling Hindu nationalists.
What it is a huge symbolic move to say, this is land, we can do with it what we like, we don't need the consent of the people.
Anything to do with Kashmir goes beyond internal politics. For 70 years, Pakistan has also laid claim to the region and has gone to war with India over it twice, saying today it will exercise all possible options to counter illegal steps. The United Nations, which monitors the area, is urging calm.
We are following with concern the tense situation in the region.
Meanwhile, the Indian military presence is being increased as the curfew remains in place. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, London.
Coming up, in depth on our top story, hear from two men, both who once subscribed to violent and hateful ideas, how they're now trying to get at the root causes of mass shootings.
And later, our climate change series, In Our Backyard, checks out the new frontier of farming, smart fertilizers.
When the farmer is making economical decisions based on data and precision agriculture, the environment wins every time.
It's not fair that somebody from God knows where just showed up and did something so ugly to us with so much hatred.
A victim of the El Paso attack expresses frustration felt by so many. After Las Vegas and Parkland and Sandy Hook, it can seem that mass shooters appear out of nowhere, but the FBI has studied the data, and these attackers tend to share some characteristics. 94% are men. Mass shooters are mostly white, although that's in line with their proportion of the U.S. population. Most active shooters are either single at the time of shooting or divorced or separated. The FBI concluded that active shooters can behave in ways before their attacks that could signal impending violence. Nearly 2/3 of active shooters had a history of acting in an abusive, harassing, and oppressive way, including excessive bullying.
He's just always been a really crazy kid. And I heard some people say that one day he would have done this, and unfortunately I think that was today.
Knowing all of this, can we look at how people get to such a violent place and diffuse the threat before it takes shape? Tonight, we're going to go in depth on that very question with two guests who, at one time, were nearly consumed by hate. Canadian Tony McClear was a white supremacist. He used to recruit for the White Aryan Resistance, but he went through a personal transformation and co-founded Life After Hate, which now helps people leave extremist and white supremacist groups. Aaron Stark was almost a school shooter. After the Parkland shooting, he admitted publicly that as a teen he had tried and failed to get a gun because he felt so powerless. Now he gives talks and tries to help others in similar situations. Aaron is in Denver tonight and Tony is in Vancouver. Good to see you both. Thanks for joining us. Aaron, I'm going to start with you. We don't know a whole lot at this stage about what happened in Ohio, but we certainly know more about what happened in El Paso, particularly because of this racist manifesto that was posted by the alleged shooter. What did you make of that?
I saw immediately that he was searching for validation. He seemed to be writing about how he wanted to be some kind of hero against the invading horde, and it seemed to all be directed towards getting his in-group to cheer him on. And it seemed to be that he wanted positive validation, but from the most negative source possible.
And Tony, as someone who used to be a white supremacist and recruit them, what did you think of the message that was left?
I think, what this ideology and what these movements attract is people with those vulnerabilities that are lacking a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, a sense of significance. And when you join these movements, they will give you all of it in spades and like the other guest said, in the most negative way possible.
So they make you feel like you belong? Is that what you're trying to say, Tony?
Yeah, they make you feel like you belong and you're part of this great heroic struggle to save the white race, and it adds a narrative of meaning to a life that maybe doesn't have such a narrative, that doesn't have a solid sense of purpose.
So Aaron, you gave this talk where you admitted that you had actually considered a school shooting. This wasn't a school shooting, but they were 2 shootings in a number of days. So what do you think when you see that unfolding?
I think that there is a simmering kind of hatred in this country, and I think that it's being pushed on by those up at the top. It doesn't help with Trump with tweeting out that people need to go back where they come from. That does not help at all.
Well, so Tony, I was going to put that to you as well. That the rhetoric that we're hearing from the president, does it in some way normalize behavior? Does it embolden people?
Well, I think our society is very much at war with itself. And I think it's a simplistic way to look at it. I think the issue is more of a culture of violence that exists in the United States. That, and I think the social media and the glorification of these acts. I think that Christchurch was the first time where someone really used the internet to live stream the video and to really try and make himself I hate to use this word in this context, but a superstar in that space. And I think we have to do what the Prime Minister of New Zealand said and not give him that space, not mention his name.
I hear what you're saying about the culture, the American culture, and I'll get you to weigh in on that too, Aaron. But is there not something particular happening here around white supremacy? Do you not think that it is particular to that subculture as well?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And some of those guys that, for example, the person who shot up Tree of Life synagogue almost a little less than a year ago in Pittsburgh, he in his manifesto despised Trump. So there is this culture of fear and hatred that permeates this society, and our society's become increasingly polarized. And I think with each and every attack, it gets normalized.
So Aaron, you're down there, you're an American living in that, and you're now at the point in your life where you're trying to reach some of these people who are feeling marginalized or being lured into violence or white supremacy or whatever. What are those people telling you? How do they approach you, and what are they talking to you about?
Well, I think that there is definitely a fetishistic nature with violence here in America, where we tend to wrap around all our heroes with violence, and it seems to just permeate every level of our culture. And I think that when people are coming to me, it seems the thing that strikes me the most is how universal that sense of pain is. I think at the base of it, the real problem is when you hate yourself, you'll do everything you can to make the world agree with you. And I think that these kids hate themselves.
Yeah, but Aaron, why is it particularly white men that are doing that and that are affected in that way?
I think that as we're raised, we're taught that we need to be a certain way. We need to man up. We need to not show emotion. We need to act like a man. And I think that those kinds of teachings are extremely damaging to our youth. I think that I think that white males, especially in America, have a huge access to high-capacity weapons. They have a seemingly a growing hatred of education and a vilification of people who are smart. And that combination, it just turns into this swirling morass of hatred. It's the fear of the other. It's xenophobia. Right. It's the fear of the different.
So Tony, when you're out there trying to help people too, and either they reach out to you or their family reaches out to you, or there's signs that they are turning this way, what are you doing to try and turn them before these things happen?
What we do is at Life After Hate, we try and find them resources in their local community to help them with these issues because they're struggling with it as a family, and then the individuals are struggling as well. We try and deal with the pain, the underlying cause of the pain and the anger, which is leading to the lashing out.
Aaron, and you wanted to weigh in on that too.
Oh, just that from my own personal aspect of it is I tend to deal with more of the depression side. The people who come to me, I talk to them more about feeling worthless and how they don't feel listened to. And so I try to focus most on making them feel like they belong. Because when you don't feel human, being treated like a person can change your entire world. And sometimes that's the base problem of it. They just don't feel like they're human.
Because you've both been through different things, but both sort of trying to get out of something, let me just end on this. I'll start with you, Tony. What was the moment or the thing that clicked for you when you sort of were able to get yourself back away from all that hate and darkness?
Yeah, to touch on what Aaron's point was, it was compassion, and the compassion showed up in the form of my two children that were born 15 months apart. And when I couldn't see, I saw a person who wasn't whole when I looked in the mirror. Kids, they see a whole person. They see a magnificent person when we can't see it on our own. And that's what compassion does. When we're compassionate with someone, we hold a mirror up to them and allow them to see their humanity reflected back at them. And once that process starts and is further supported, it can make that change. Because I believe that the level to which we dehumanize other human beings is a mirror reflection of how internally disconnected and dehumanized we are.
Aaron, last word to you on that.
For me, it was being treated like a human. It was simple acts of kindness. It was listening to me when I felt like no one was listening to me in the world, and realizing that I wasn't broken and I was just going through a really terrible life.
I would imagine sometimes, though, people are too far gone. Are they not, Aaron?
I'd say that, yeah, there are the people, if you follow through on the act and you actually go through with it, you're too far gone and you deserve the punishment that you're getting. And there's a small selection of people who are going to do that. But there's a much larger section of people who are in that gray area that might do it, or that feel like they could at any time. And those are the people that we can reach. Those are the people that we can show that life really does matter, and that they matter, and that their opinion is worthy, and that people will miss them. And show kindness. Kindness is free. People say all the time that, well, if it's not going to fix all these problems, then why should we do it? And this law isn't going to change everything, and we can't pass that regulation. We can start by just being nice to one person at a time. Just be nice. Give love to the people who you feel deserve it the least because they need it the most.
Okay, I got to leave it there. Aaron and Tony, thank you both for your perspectives tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So much to think about there. Coming up next on the program, In Our Backyard, the national series on climate change will take you to a Manitoba swampland that may hold the secret to flood prevention.
It's a natural infrastructure. It's a dam that we have built. We're helping to alleviate some of the strains on municipal infrastructure by holding the water back and slowing it down.
I'm Jamie Poisson. Tomorrow on CBC's daily news podcast Front Burner. After 2 U.S. mass shootings over the weekend, we talk with a gun violence expert about what is going on in America. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Here are some other stories we're following tonight on The National. Officials in Egypt say 20 people were killed and 47 others injured after a car packed with explosives crashed outside a Cairo hospital. The country's interior ministry says the car was stolen a few months ago and was intended for a militant attack in a separate location. More than 70 patients were evacuated to other hospitals following the explosion. Passengers on this British Airways flight say it was like a horror movie. Smoke appeared to come out of the air conditioning system about 10 minutes before landing in Spain today. Those on board were told to get down to breathe easier. Once on the ground, passengers evacuated via the emergency chutes. British Airways has not yet said what precisely the source of the smoke was. This week, the International Panel on Climate Change is expected to release a new report that focuses on land. A leaked draft suggests if the world doesn't change how it produces food and manages land, global temperatures will rise above 2 degrees Celsius, widely considered the point of no return. Agriculture is a major source of greenhouse gas emissions. Farms in Canada have managed to cut their carbon output, but at the same time, the release of another potent gas has increased. Bonnie Allen explains why fertilizer is largely to blame and what's being done about it.
As farmers seeded their crop this spring, the challenge, as always, how to spend less but grow more.
We have oats and barley.
Jocelyn Valestic strategically mixes and rotates crops to fertilize the soil naturally.
We can put whatever we want in our mix that will grow the best and will improve the soil at the same time.
But in order to get a profitable yield, she still spends more than $100,000 a year on manufactured fertilizer.
We want to make sure we get that fertilizer to the plant, and it is no good to us if we've paid for fertilizer that's in the atmosphere.
In Western Canada, farmers have increased the use of nitrogen fertilizer by more than 150% since the 80s. The result is record-breaking yields and more food for the world. But it also comes at a cost to the environment. Some fertilizer is wasted. For example, after a farmer seeds and fertilizes, the plant can only use a certain amount and not all at once. A heavy rain can cause excess fertilizer to convert to nitrous oxide, a greenhouse gas 300 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Fertilizer use is responsible for so much nitrous oxide, it's equivalent to driving more than 2.5 million cars for a year. Tyler Kessler is an agronomist who advises farmers on how to reduce fertilizer waste.
When the farmer is making economical decisions based on data and precision agriculture, the environment wins every time because we're not over-applying where we don't need to be.
He takes soil samples and collects data from moisture probes to map the yield potential. Then he calculates the best kind of fertilizer, how much, and where and when to use it.
I write a prescription that goes into the tractor, into the drill, and it tells it where to put the fertilizer and at what rate.
The fertilizers are evolving too. Slow-release fertilizers give the plants more time to absorb them. Nitrification inhibitors can potentially reduce how much converts to gas. And so-called smart fertilizers, still being developed, would only respond to what the plant needs. Efficient fertilizer use is the new farming frontier.
We're kind of on the cusp of it.
How to grow the most food while trying to save money and the environment. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, near Regina.
Now, another area of great concern is the role climate change plays in extreme flooding. So some experts are looking at natural or green infrastructure to manage water. Karen Pauls shows us one solution in southern Manitoba.
This is Pelly's Lake. It looks like a swampland full of reeds and cattails, but it's much more than that.
What the Pelly's Lake project is, it's a natural infrastructure. It's a dam that we have built to enhance an existing wetland marsh area that allows us to capture spring runoff. We're helping to alleviate some of the strains on municipal infrastructure that's downstream by holding the water back and slowing it down.
In June, when this part of Manitoba is often bone dry, Justin Reed opens the floodgates.
We have gates in our culverts that are through the dam, and we come out and we open the gates and start the draining process then.
It's just a trickle, and that's kind of the point, controlling spring floodwater that threatened homes, bridges, and roads. The water flows downstream, filling up reservoirs and wells owned by farmers and municipalities, so they can use it to irrigate fields and golf courses.
We've set our levels so that the flow leaving the dam doesn't cause any additional flooding problems downstream, and now we get to monitor it from here on out to make sure that things are flowing smoothly.
Pelly's Lake works on a small scale, but could it work in cases of major flooding?
The Pelly's Lake is, in comparison, 93 square kilometers. So we're comparing here 146,000 square kilometers and 93 square kilometers.
This expert says natural reservoirs can help big cities by holding back the tributaries that fill up their main rivers.
There are countries like France where they have a system of upstream, downstream agreements, let's put it that way, that the downstream parts, which oftentimes are more urban, will compensate financially the upstream parts, which oftentimes are more agricultural, to let some of that space for water to go.
Should we be thinking about the reconnaissance for that region?
Hank Fainema helped design Pelly's Lake. He's developing new ways to incorporate natural infrastructure inside cities too.
Urban is harder. But even within urban areas, there's lots of potential.
Back at Pelly's Lake, Justin Reed is a true believer.
It really doesn't take a lot of effort to find a place where this can work. You can pretty much use what you're given on the landscape, and you can hold a little bit back or a lot back, and it can be done kind of anywhere.
Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
30 years ago, he was the recruit who rocked the Mounties. Now he's poised to retire.
I never set out to be any type of a trailblazer or an icon or a role model. I did not. I set out to become a police officer.
The first Sikh RCMP officer to wear a turban is our moment, but first. In case you missed it, Alex Petrosky may be the toughest Canuck you've never met. The 34-year-old Edmontonian has won this year's Canadian death race. A grueling two-day, 125-kilometer ultra marathon through western Alberta's Rocky Mountains. Thick bush, treacherous winding paths, rivers and bogs, and hills. So many hills, including one non-stop 1,000-meter climb that frankly is a bit much. I mean, I'm never gonna run this thing, at least by choice, but come on, there's even a kid's death race. Doesn't he look like he's having fun? Oh, and running into grizzly bears is always a distinct possibility. And yet people have been willingly subjecting themselves to this for almost 20 years because self-improvement, goals, masochism, and get this, the Canadian death race is just one such event in North America. Others include Alberta's Sinister 7 race, which Petrosky has also ran because of course he has. And Tennessee's Barkley Marathon, 160 kilometers through the beautiful Appalachian Mountains, which will also totally try to kill you. So here's to you, Alex Petrosky, and all you other death racers. May you all live long enough to realize the virtues of the humble treadmill. In 1990, Baltej Dillon became the first member of the RCMP to wear a turban. At the time, he faced a lot of adversity, but over the years, he managed to change attitudes and attract a whole lot of support. Now, nearly 30 years later, Dillon is retiring from the force, and tonight, his reflection on both the struggles and progress is our moment.
Oh, that's a younger version of me, and probably a little, I need to get to that weight. It was 89 when I was told that I wasn't going to be accepted because of my articles of faith. I wasn't prepared to shave my beard and remove my turban, cut my hair, to conform to the RCMP dress uniform and regulations at the time. Well, I think the country debated the issue. There were voices for and against.
We don't have much left of our tradition. Adapt to us.
The ones that were working behind, the curtain, were dealing with it, I think, in a more systematic way.
Dillon has passed the RCMP.
The RCMP commissioner came face to face with the Charter of Rights, and I should not be discriminated against. I set out to become a police officer. My job defines me, my work ethic defines me, who I am as a police officer defines me, and that's what I want my legacy to be. Not that I was the first guy with a turban.
So I do remember that story quite vividly, but I think I heard your voice in that one. So you probably have a different experience.
Well, I mean, I lived through it. I did the lead piece on the National that night, and Rosie, I can't tell you how big a national issue that was. And do you see that little lapel pin that said "Keep the RCMP Canadian"? That's how people who were opponents of this felt. And those clips of the people in the bar, Eric Rankin did that piece for the Journal. Eric's desk is right over there. I would love for him to find some of those people who were complaining at the time that this was going to change the RCMP forever, and see 30 years later have their views moderated at all.
Yeah, and it's happening as that debate around religious symbols has taken place in Quebec, and probably that would not be allowed in Quebec in public buildings and other things. So anyway, that is the National for this Monday, August 5th. Good night, everyone.
Good night.